Talk public.
Hello and welcome to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. Always a pleasure to come your way. When it's Wednesday, of course, we're here to talk about issues affecting us here in the UK and also across the continent of Africa. This is why the show is designed for us to have a discussion, a dialogue, okay? So do get involved. Now, before we proceed any further, a bit of house cleaning. We need to, well, should I say, you need to get involved in the discussion, all right? We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. We're also live on Sky Channel 181. Okay, so wherever it is that you are watching us, let us know. Go onto our YouTube or Facebook page and share your comments on there and share the program, right? Get people involved. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. You can also listen to the program on GN Radio. And must I remind you, the show will be repeated on ATV every Fridays. Okay, so we've got you covered. Now, here's what's coming up on today's show. X Factor Football, where young players get the opportunity to showcase their skills in front of scouts. And also, a leading media company, the South African Times, forms partnership with Channel 7. Now, this is something that I'm actually looking forward to because we have to tell our own story. But we begin the show with what the IMF have said. The relationship between Ghana and IMF, meaning Ghana borrowing loans from China. According to the IMF, at the rate which Ghana has borrowed from China, China could potentially control assets of Ghana. Should Ghana fail to honor the debt or paying back the debt, I should say, China will have control of Ghana's assets. So we're asking, should Ghanaians be concerned? And joining us in the studio here to discuss this important issue, by a popular demand, he's been asked to come back. Solomon Latte, who is a broadcaster and also a political commentator. Solomon, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, definitely. It's a pleasure to have you too.
Should Ghanaians be concerned?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we should have to be concerned about the rate at which the country is borrowing or the current government is going now, because right now, um, what we are dealing with is that our destiny, our political destiny, is being mortgaged. Why am I saying that? Now, I like to look at things from a very, I'm more of a realist. I don't believe in subjective analysis. I'm more of a realist and empiricist because I believe that we have been deceived by the rhetoric for far too long. We have to see, the realistic projection of how the economy is nosediving and how best Ghanaians can see the picture. So let's try to play with some some statistics in order for us to see, in order to give us a better grounding for us to do the forensics of the matter on the ground. Now, the point is, right now, according to IMF, for the past 20 years, um, the government or Ghana, okay, has borrowed about 5 billion
5 billion US dollars. Yes,
5
5
billion
billion.
US dollars. All right. Okay. And that makes up 41 loans, 41 collateral loans. Okay. Now, I mean, these collateral loans can also be referred to as securitized loans because the point is, the whole idea is that when you go for those loans, in case you default in paying these loans, all right, you have a collateral. It's just like going to the bank.
Yes.
You have a collateral that in case or you default in paying these loans, these collaterals will be used. Okay. Now, the interesting aspect of this whole brouhaha, or let me say hula baloo,
Yeah.
is that you have policymakers who easily give out, you understand, their dignity in such a way that these conditions were made clear to them that in default of paying these loans, now proceeds from oil, bauxite, cocoa, and what? Electricity sales,
Yeah, electricity sales, yeah.
will be used in order to redeem the debts that we what? Outstanding. Now, the point is that at this point, at this juncture, according to World Bank research or according to World Bank records, there are the less developed countries, or in other words, what is referred to as poor countries in them. As things stand now, what there is the debt service payment in has grossed to the tune of $35 billion. Now, out of this $35 billion, 40% of that belongs to China. Okay, now, the truth of the matter is that China is not so benevolent like other donor countries. That's one thing we don't understand, because the point is that, let's backtrack a bit to history, and let's visit the Kufuor administration.
Right.
Now, when Kufuor came, the first fiscal policy or the first economic policy he put out was he went to negotiate with what the Bretton Woods institutions that what we had to go to HIPC, because what the debt outstanding was so astronomical and what so colossal that there had to be a house cleaning, you understand, so that the economy could what be revamped. Okay, now I don't want us to dwell so much. What I'm trying to do is expand, open the box,
Yeah.
so that we can see a better understanding, get a better understanding of the situation at hand. Now, as of 2021, all right, Ghana's GDP, all right, was what? $77.56 billion. Okay. Now, as of 2021, China's GDP was 73.59 trillion dollars. Okay. Now, let's look at how much Ghana makes, okay, from what is called the relevant natural resources. There are some relevant natural resources like bauxite. Now, bauxite and manganese generates 170 million and 22 million, respectively.
Yeah.
Now, the reason is that if we are able to tabloid these statistics,
Yeah.
we'll get a better picture of the situation at hand. All right. Now, so
I understand what you're saying.
I'm making a point.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
all right.
drawing to a point.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so we are putting all these things, we are putting all these statistics together for us to be able to understand what the situation that we are dealing with. Okay. Now, in terms of electricity, all right, right now as we're speaking, Ghana uses 1/3 of its GDP. Okay, which technically probably is in the neighborhood of $25.86 billion dollars.
Yeah.
Ghana uses 1/3 to import energy, you understand, to service its industry. All right. Now, so what we are dealing here is a very serious issue. Why is it that it's a serious issue? Right now, the point is that if the Chinese right now in Ghana defaults in what making this payment, technically, what we are going to see is that we are going to use almost about 2/3 of the what our GDP,
GDP, yeah.
of the GDP to substitute for the debts that has grossed over the years.
Yeah.
Now, the point is that these loans have what is called debt service payments. You understand? No, so these are like when you take a loan, you have what is called an APR. Okay, all right. Now, so these are what they are.
Interest.
Interest.
Yeah.
Now, but the point is that again, the truth of the matter is that there are other macroeconomic factors like inflation. You understand that technically adds up to what the worry of these, because technically what it makes it causes what these what statistics or these figures to what increase.
But I just want to jump in here briefly, Solomon, if I may. I'll come back to you, but I want us to listen to this clip because some time ago I had the opportunity of speaking to the former Minister for Africa, the former UK Minister for Africa, Vicky Ford, and I asked her about the level at which China is actually investing across the continent of Africa. Let's listen to what she had to say. There's been a lot of talks about the rate at which China, for instance, investing across Africa.
So one of the things that we've been doing in the UK under our current Foreign Secretary is really focusing on what is the UK's offer in terms of helping to support funding for infrastructure. And we've taken what used to be called the Commonwealth Development Bank, which had been going for a very, very long time, for over 70 years, Commonwealth Development Corporation. We looked at what it does, given it more different tools that it can use, financial tools to support economic growth, and rebranded it as British International Investment. And BII is looking at projects all across the continent, but actually in other parts of the world too, for example, in the Caribbean, and looking at how it can help unlock other investment. So, for example, in Ghana, they're looking at how they can get some of their balance sheet in to support small and medium-sized enterprises, similar to a deal that we've recently done in Kenya as well, and a deal that we were doing in Nigeria where they've put up a fund that will help get small energy projects off the ground. So BII will also work on larger scale infrastructure investments as well. So again, when I visited in Kenya recently, East Africa's largest solar farm has been funded by British International Investment. So that's a key part of our tool. And what we make it really clear, and with this new toolbox that we've given them, is we want to make sure that when we invest from the UK into infrastructure in African countries, that it is absolutely transparent, that it is honest, that it is reliable, that you don't get a deal from your lender that suddenly comes with extra strings attached. That if a deal doesn't go quite how it wanted, that we'll talk to the country, okay, and try and work out what the best way forward. But sometimes when we've seen other countries offer infrastructure money, it's sounded very good value. But actually, if things haven't gone quite according to plan, it's been an absolute nightmare for the country concerned. So this is why we want to have this honest, reliable funding.
Looking at the way in which China has invested, does it limit the influence of Britain, particularly across Africa?
I think it's different. I think when I've been across the continent, and I've now visited more than a dozen different countries in the 6 months that I've had this job, I've been talking to businesses, been talking to government ministers as well. In some places I've said they've felt this sort of reticence more recently, okay? You know, and looking at this sort of what is the different offer. So I don't really want to criticise other countries because that's not a very British thing to do. What I want to say is what we want to do, which is we want to make sure that you have honest, reliable, trustworthy financing, okay? Sometimes that means that putting a deal together, preparing it, takes more time in the preparation, okay? Before you actually see, you know, concrete spades digging or whatever, concrete being laid. But that often is worthwhile, that you'll get to the end of a project faster. You'll often get to an end of a project actually cheaper if you spend more time and investment. And this is what we will say to countries is, you know, look at it. When you take a deal from the UK, on average, actually, the time to completion, the cost of the deal is less, the expertise is greater, the excellence is greater, and so that's what we're offering. But it is a really big change in the way that we're trying to help our friends and partners around the world.
Okay, so that was the former UK Minister for Africa, Vicky Ford, and she said something which I thought was poignant and interesting to what we're having, the discussion we're having here. Is that, of course, I asked her about the level at which China's invested across the continent of Africa. Does this diminish the UK's influence? And then she's saying that at least this was what she was alluding to. She said it, that at least when you deal with the UK, it's very transparent. Dealing with other people, where should you default on your repayments, they take over or they seize your assets. So you're better off dealing with the West. And isn't this what the West have been saying about China? And Ghana, unfortunately, has also fallen into that trap, where China could potentially control Ghana's assets.
Yeah, but the point is that one thing you have to understand, that China is an Eastern Bloc country, and the UK and its allies are Western Bloc. Now, technically, these Eastern Bloc countries are socialist in nature, all right? Western Bloc countries are capitalist in nature. Okay, so the whole ideology are different. Now, the point is, in as much as communism, has virtually become almost obsolete, still China thrives on communism. So why is communism working for China? But it has failed in other places.
So if
the point is that the whole ideological now the truth of the matter is that though she's talking about whatever that she's talking about, that probably the UK has much more malleable or flexible terms and conditions of giving loans. Don't forget that the loan is for the loans will be paid. It's not as if it's a charity. Okay, but the point is, the Chinese have a more radical approach in giving their money and taking their money back. That is just, you see, the truth of the matter.
You prefer that?
It depends on what works for. You see, my problem with African politicians is that, I'm sorry to say this, but it's the truth. Most African politicians, or those who are very stupid. Okay, now I come to tell you, I lay my terms and conditions down. Now, for the fact that I am in a fix, all right, I'm looking at the present and not looking at the future. Now, in 72, in 72, under the Supreme Military Council, the National Redemption Council, right, led by Kufuor Achampon, all right, in 75 or 76, Kufuor Achampon proposed the Yen-Tua policy, that they were not going to pay the loans that were standing when they came to office, because these loans were contracted under shady conditions. But the truth of the matter was that these loans, the terms and conditions, are made in in black and white documents. And it's not as if that these people who go to sit there are dumb and stupid. So now tell me, all right, tell me, and I mean, probably I'm not intelligent enough. I come, you understand, tell you that these are the terms and the conditions of a business. Okay, now, you see, what a lot of African countries and African politicians and leaders are refusing to understand is that these people are giving loans with an interest.
Of course.
It is either financial or other type of interest.
No, I agree. I mean,
there is this belief of entitlement. I always talk about Africans have this entitlement that especially Western countries, they stole our gold and our diamonds and whatever. So right now, yes, we want to take back what rightfully belongs to us. But the truth of the matter is that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Why? Because the point is, most of the economic development that is going on is deficit economic because the point, you build bridges, you build roads, you build schools and stuff like that, where the money is not being generated, the revenue is not being generated internally but externally. That is on you are building infrastructure on deficit.
I guess we have to also make this this point simply because this statement was actually made by the IMF And one will argue you don't expect IMF to say anything positive about China. The IMF and its loans as well has significant negative impacts on African economies. So here we are, a lot of the African countries.
Why is it negative? Why should that be negative?
Well, it does because you're talking about conditions that comes with IMF loans.
Where's the problem?
Right.
The reason is that now somebody has told you, okay, now let's even look at that. Okay, right now, Ghana has an outstanding debt of, I think, about 58 billion or something like that, right? Okay. Now tell me, out of this 58 billion, do we see this 58 billion debt? Okay, so though it's a debt, okay, actually also it's a credit. That's what that means. What we have 58 million sitting in our economy. Now tell me and show me, is there is any physical representation or translation of these monies that have what? There is no commensurating.
No,
what?
I don't disprove.
It doesn't show. Right now the economy is nose diving. I mean,
I'm not disproving what you're saying, Solomon, here. But I think that the issue here is, okay, you gave an analogy, okay, that at the end of the day is a business transaction. And I give you that. But would you rather go to a bank that in case, 1 month, maybe money situation is not right and you default on your payment, where you can go to the bank, sit down and maybe readjust the payments and so on and so forth, right? Look at your expenditure, your incomings and outgoings, right? To give you to find a better solution to resolve the issue. Or would you rather deal with a bank that as soon as you default, the bailiffs are at your door looking to take your assets away?
Now, again,
no, I want you to answer that question.
I'll answer that question, but I want us to, on May 17th, the IMF agreed to give Ghana, $3 billion. Okay, already, I think they've gained a concession of, I think, $600 million already. Now, the IMF came out to say that most of the problems that Ghana is having are internal problems. Okay, now, and this is as a result of most of the debt is as a result of the government's commitment in financing commercial banks. Okay, all right. Now, so if that is the case, that means that both the micro and the macroeconomic structures, all right, have been is distorted, or is destabilized, or is being mismanaged. Okay, it's being mismanaged. I just gave you some statistics. All right, gold alone, the gold alone generates about $5.1 billion dollars for Ghana. Just gold alone. What? Okay. Now, the point is, right now, when we talk about electricity, Ghana is subsisting on 5,143 megawatts. Now, but 4,710 megawatts is what technically can be relied on. All right. Now, in as much as that is the case, we have all these, in as much as that is the case, and looking at the amount of money that is being generated. You understand? The amount of the money that is being generated. Oil is generating about 1.5 billion. Okay, now, so if we are prudent enough, if we apply financial prudence, can't we be able to amalgamate all these accruals in order to be able to service our economy? You understand? To service the economy. Because technically, it's not as if that, now the point is, Ghana has high inflation. Okay, Ghana has what we might say that, and it's not only Ghana, across the board. You understand? Our galloping inflation. Okay, galloping inflation. Well, that is the problem with most African. You understand? Because the macroeconomic structures are quite weak. Do you understand what I'm saying? But in as much as the case, you understand, if these structures are, I keep on talking about these structures. These structures are there, but the point is that it is being mismanaged. All right, and that is the issue that we are having. Because looking at these figures I've given to you, all right, and looking at how much we are owing, I mean,
no, I understand.
1.9 billion. We are open China now 1.9 billion.
Yes.
Okay.
I understand. Solomon,
Yeah.
let me come in here. I understand, but I think, there's an argument for the rate at which Ghana borrows and the over-reliance on the IMF, okay, and borrowing of money. Every country borrows, right? Hold on.
I'm listening.
But I think the crucial point here is the fact that your assets will be controlled by a foreign entity. Should you fail? And here we are. We also, the IMF is no saint to this. But I want us to just, with the few minutes that we have here, we all know what's going on currently in the world. When I say we, I mean that, the global issues when it comes to China and the US. Is this just a front by the US? Because in the past, they've made comments about getting loans from China, that you're putting yourself in a risky position, that Africans ought to stay away from China and keep dealing with the West. Is this what we're looking at here?
You see, it's very interesting. I'm sorry to say this, but it's like, despite our education, I mean, I believe that God sent the Europeans to come and give us education, because even with the education, it amazes me how stupid how some of these African leaders are. No, listen, I have no synonym to use to call, because the point is, these are very educated people. You know the consequences of these, but the point is that they don't care. I watched a footage of an interview that was granted to Yoweri Museveni of Uganda on the Kenyan Broadcasting Company, and they asked him, Mr. President, how do you feel that you were contributing so much to your country, but it's like people are not appreciating? He said, listen, I'm not worried. I'm working for myself, my children, and my grandchildren. And that is exactly the mentality of most African leaders. They don't care. Pierre Lumumba has talked about this. Professor Pierre Lumumba has talked about this several times. That, you see, the problem that we have in Africa is a problem of mindset. Now, Akufo-Addo comes, he says, listen, I don't care. Right? At the end of the day, Akufo-Addo, the last time I checked, he gets about 76, I think, thousand or something like that a year. You understand? Apart from allowances and things like that. But what I'm trying to say is that this situation can be salvaged. All right? This situation, now China is a different country. Every country has its terms and conditions. You understand? Now, it's like Harrods. Nobody asks you to go to Harrods. It's what? Your purchasing power. All right? If you can't go to Harrods, there is Primark. All right, there's Lidl. See, to go to what? Okay. All right. Because you go there, you know that this is the terms and conditions. So why are you crying?
Okay. Why are you crying? We'll pause here for a moment. We'll continue with this discussion here. I'm sure we'll have Solomon come back to continue. But for now, we're taking a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more. We'll be back shortly.
Leatherback helps you move your money securely from one country to another with ease. With over 20 currencies to choose from, including Indian rupee, Naira, Ghanaian cedi, and US dollar, with Leatherback you can move money anytime, anywhere. Simply sign up, verify your identity, and you're ready to add money to your account. Leatherback is licensed in 4 countries, and with full visibility of your cash flow via our dashboard, you're in control. One access, one platform, one world. Download the Leatherback app and let the journey begin.
I am so hungry. This aromatic food.
I'll say you can pop.
Whether you're looking for poundo in your crayfish stock or pepper seasoning or any other ingredient, Tropical Salt has everything you need. Hey, no. Take the pancake yam. A strong young man. A hero.
Mommy's a real hero.
Tropical Salt flavors of the world to your table.
Leatherback helps you move your money securely from one country to another with ease. With over 20 currencies to choose from, including Indian rupee, Naira, Ghanaian cedi, and US dollar, with Leatherback you can move money anytime, anywhere. Simply sign up,